Good evening, everybody. Once again, my name is Chris Bartlett. I'm the Director of Enrollment at Proctor here at Proctor Academy. You are on a Proctor Academy Zoom call. This is being recorded. So if you have to miss part of this, it'll be posted on our website afterwards, and you can watch these recordings. So tonight's program is, I think it's the third or fourth in our series of Proctor virtual events. And this one is really focused in on our off-campus programs. So I know there's lots of folks on this call who have already been to campus. You've engaged with the school already. But there's also going to be some folks out there who are new to Proctor. And so we're going to spend a few minutes just sort of framing up the program for this evening. And so what I'm going to do is just introduce you briefly to the idea of Proctor's off-campus programs. These are very, very unique programs. It takes a little bit to just explain how they work and how they're really integrated into the school and the curriculum. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes doing that, and then I'm going to really try to turn it over to our students. And we have, I think we have 5 students, current Proctor students here, who are super excited to answer questions and sort of represent the different programs and tell you their stories, right? Because they're the ones who've had these experiences. So I'll just start out by saying that the first thing that we'd like to talk about is this idea that Proctor is of course a school, and we're located in this small village here in Andover, New Hampshire. But really our campus is pretty global when you take into account the programs that we run. So there are 5 off-campus programs that Proctor offers, and that's in addition to all the programming that's happening here on campus, which is pretty remarkable. So, so essentially what happens here at Proctor is we always have about 35 or so students who actually aren't here. They are out, on our programs. So we have 21 students right now who are on a tall ship called Ocean Classroom, and they are away for the entire fall trimester. We also have another 10 students in Segovia, Spain, and another 8 students on a program called European Art Classroom. And so essentially what we do is by over-enrolling the school by this number of students, we fund the programs. So when boarding students go and participate in these programs, it's built into the cost and structure of the tuition. And then day students pay a fee, but there's also financial aid available to help try to supplement that to make sure everybody has access. So if you do the math with our students, essentially the number that's on this slide is probably an underrepresentation. I think for this year, we'll probably be closer to 105 of our students will spend a trimester studying off campus this year. So it's pretty remarkable. This is the other disclaimer we like to talk about. We didn't invent these off-campus programs just for tonight's Zoom program to make Proctor seem really cool. We've actually been doing this for a really, really long time, and it's really foundational and fundamental to who we are as a school. And so if you look at this timeline, what you'll see is in 1972, a program called Mountain Classroom, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, was introduced. And subsequently, a couple of years later, language programs in France and Spain were added. And then you can sort of see through this timeline over the years, we've had some programs, like a program in Morocco, and we sunsetted that a number of years ago. And then we've added other programs like Ocean Classroom, Proctor in Costa Rica, European Art Classroom, et cetera. So we're always iterating at Proctor. And so if somebody has a really great idea for a program that really fits within our mission, we're always going to look at it and consider it. But again, this is really part of who we are as a school and part of our culture and our history. So here's just some action shots to whet your appetite for the kinds of active learning that happens on these programs. And of course, the reason that we have these programs is because experience is the best teacher, right? So you put students out into the world, you put them into situations where there's really rich context, and that's when amazing learning happens. So again, this slide is probably a little bit dated because there's some additional programs on here, but essentially Ocean Classroom runs in the fall trimester. So each program is listed here in the right-hand corner, and you'll see there's F and W and S, and that means fall, winter, and spring. And so each trimester, because we're on trimesters at Proctor, different programs are running. And actually this year, we are running European Art Classroom in the fall. And we're also running Ocean Classroom in the winter. So sometimes this changes a little bit. So really quickly, I'm going to let the students talk about the programs more extensively, but really briefly, here are the programs. So Mountain Classroom, which is a kind of an expeditionary program typically in desert Southwest. And I think we've got Phoenix, who's been on that program, and can't remember, someone else is going, but we'll get to that. And so this is a traveling program. It's been described by some as like an academic kind of outward bound or NOLS experience. So it has that expeditionary piece of it, but it's also an academic program. There's a program in Segovia, Spain, which is a language immersion program. And that program is place-based in Segovia. We have our own little campus there and our own program directors, but they do quite a bit of travel. And again, students are receiving about a year's worth of language for one trimester of immersion. Ocean Classroom, that runs again in the fall, and it will run again this winter. But you can see it's an academic program aboard a schooner. And you can see there's obviously marine sciences, maritime history, maritime literature, and navigational mathematics. So yeah. And a program in Costa Rica. This is a program for sophomores. Most of the other programs that we run are actually really exclusively for 11th and 12th graders, but this program is a program that's open to sophomores. So we'll have 6 sophomores this winter. They'll spend the winter trimester in Monteverde in the cloud forest in Costa Rica. And last but not least, European Art Classroom, which is an art-intensive program based in Aix-en-Provence in France. And that is a program that also does quite extensive travel in addition to the time spent in France. So, I'm going to turn it over to our students. So if Sam, you're up first, you get to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us what program you have done and what programs you're maybe thinking about, and maybe some fun facts about yourself.
Awesome. I'm Sam Sewell. I'm a 4-year senior. I'm from Damariscotta, Maine. Yeah, I went on Ocean Classroom last year in the fall. It was one of the experiences that I came to Proctor for. It was one of the things that really hooked me here. And it was one of the best trips I've ever done. We had a slow start getting out there on the ocean, but once we did, it was unimaginable. I got to do so many new things that I've never even thought about doing. And one of the other huge things for me was being able to meet so many new people. It seems like everybody's always worried when you first start, like any trip, it seems like about your people and who's on the trip. And if you'll be able to have like a good friend on that trip, or who you'll be able to like go to when things are hard. And what I found was you can really go to anybody. It took maybe like a few days to a week to really get a solid bond with some other people. Like the first couple of days are going to be slow. Everybody's still like timid, and everybody's like, oh, this is something new, this can be challenging, until you really start learning all these new like things with navigation and how to get from point A to B, or tie a knot, or to set sail. And when you're all in that same struggle of trying to learn something new, it really brings you guys together, and it shows you how people you never would have thought about being friends with can like come together and be lifelong friends.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. That's a perfect intro. Appreciate it. So next up we got Eliza.
Hi, I'm Eliza. I'm a day student. So I'm from New London, New Hampshire. I went to Spain last winter. Just some of the stuff I do on campus. I'm the captain of the varsity soccer team and the JV lacrosse team. And yeah, going to Segovia was definitely stepping outside of my comfort zone a lot. And I think one of the big things about it is, like Sam was saying, it's one of those programs where you worry a lot about the people that you're going to be with. But definitely one of the biggest takeaways that I had from it was that just like the bond that I formed with all the people on that group was truly amazing. And especially even like with your host family and stuff like that. So it was definitely a good experience. But should I say more? Or should I wait for questions?
Yeah, we can wait for questions. We're good. Perfect. Thank you, Eliza. All right, Libby.
Hi guys, so I'm a 4-year senior. I live in New London, as it says, and I went on Euro the winter of last year, and it, as everybody's been saying, it was honestly a life-changing experience. I'd never left North America before, so getting to travel to France and Spain and Italy and see all those places and meet people that I wouldn't have talked to otherwise, and like just get to experience Europe was something I like can't even articulate the value for.
Awesome. Libby, are you going away again or not?
I was hoping to, but it didn't work out.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thanks. Phoenix.
Hi, I'm Phoenix. I'm also a 4-year senior. Last winter, I went on Mountain Classroom. When I got to Proctor my freshman year, I had not been away in the woods for any period of time. I'd done family camping trips. I come from a very outdoorsy family. But after Proctor orientation, my sophomore year, I led orientation and then took advantage of Mountain Classroom as soon as I possibly could. My older brother went on it before I had. So it was a really exciting opportunity for me. And I was kind of looking forward to it from the moment that I got to Proctor. Actually, a big part, we were living abroad in Indonesia and we decided to move back partially because I wanted to have the Proctor experience and be able to go off campus. So it was an incredible experience. I'll answer more questions.
So you were off campus in Indonesia and then you came to Proctor so you could go off campus.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, we're going to unpack that later. Awesome. Last but certainly not least, Jackson, tell us your story.
So I'm Jackson Gamache. I'm a 3-year junior. I went to Costa Rica last year in the winter, and it was just a really great experience. I had a lot of fun just getting involved in the culture and kind of getting out. They focus a lot on Spanish and a lot on like the science of the rainforest. So we did a lot of rainforest hikes and the biodiversity. Like if you lived in New Hampshire or almost the US, like all of the US, like my whole life, like you don't see anything like the flora and fauna that they have down there. So it was really great to see that and experience that.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Jackson. So essentially, actually, I'm going to skip to this. So what we're going to do now is really just open this up to folks out there in the universe. And we obviously have a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. And so would love to have you kind of populate that with questions you might have. And so these students, you have 5 students, and the 5 students purposely sort of represent each of the programs. So, we have all 5 programs that Proctor offers represented through these students. But feel free to ask questions. Particularly pertinent questions might be sort of like how do you choose which programs you might want to do? How is this integrated into the rest of your academics? What if you play a sport? So there's a lot of good, good questions that could be out there. If you don't ask them, I will, but it'd be more fun if we can hear from folks out there. Yeah, feel free to populate the chat box here, and we'll go from there. So it looks like we have, yeah. So the first question is a good one. So can each of you maybe describe quickly, what is a typical day in an off-campus program, right? So these folks who are out there are trying to wrap their head around boarding school or Proctor, and now we're sort of talking about going off campus. And so how do you, what does a day look like? How are the academics integrated? What's a typical day, on Ocean Classroom, on Euro, Spain, Costa Rica, Mountain? So who wants to go first?
I can go. So as I said, I went on Euro. And the days there's a couple like different, I guess, types of day on Euro. The first one is like our typical like class day, I guess. We would wake up and we'd do our half-hour of French class. We'd have our art history class, and then we'd get on the bus and head into Aix-en-Provence. It was maybe like a half-hour total trip to when we would get to the cafe, and we'd do English class, and then we'd have free time in Aix to shop or eat. Some people would do like grocery shopping for the week, and then we'd all head back and we'd cook dinner and go to sleep. And then another type of day was what Dave, who's one of the people who runs European Art Classroom, Dave would call a promenade day. And we would get up and we do our half-hour French class. We had French every day. And then we would go to the market and get like fresh bread and cheese and vegetables. And then we go out to a picturesque location. Sometimes it was painting where Paul Cézanne painted, or we were going to the seaside. And then we'd picnic and paint on plein air for a few hours, and then go home and cook dinner and have free time. And then our third sort of day was like an art demo day. So Dave would do an art demo on a certain skill that he was having us learn. And then the next Saturday after that, we would get graded on that skill. We do a graded piece for it. And then if you're on an excursion to, like we went to Paris and Barcelona and Florence, if you're on one of those excursions, it's a little bit different, but there's a lot of walking around and some museums. You'll get some food and really just experience the city to the fullest.
Cool. That's helpful. Thanks, Libby. Do you want me to call on you? Sam, talk about sort of an ocean day.
Sure. The days they changed on depending where you were. Your usual day if you were out on the ocean would be, you have 2 4-hour watches, which is like split up opposite times of the day. And you'd wake up, do your 4-hour watch, and that's either you're waking up with the sunrise, or you're going to bed with the sunset, which is amazing. And then you usually have an hour of class, which can either be history or it can just be from you learning your navigation skills and, again, how to get from point A to point B and make sure you get there safely. And then there can be some other just some other skills classes where they'll teach you how to tie knots or teach you how to read other sorts of like maps or charts and how to take different readings of things, like checking the weather, the clouds, making sure the boat is going to stay afloat, a bunch of things like that. And then if you're in port, you are usually able to go into town when they give you some free time, which is either before or after class or before you go and eat. And they'll just let you go free, explore the town or the city and just get an understanding of where you are and kind of get a feel for things. Some days your history class might be you read something all together and you do a little bit of a writing, or you go and check out some museum that can be awesome. And then you learn all about that. And that's pretty much your typical day for ocean.
So kind of a lot of variety, sort of depending on the conditions.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard from some students, like when you're at sea and you're in those watch rotations, that you know, it's sort of up to you to do a lot of independent academic work because it's hard to pull the classes together. But then when you're in port, you tend to have these larger, longer classes. Is that sort of right, Sam?
Yeah. Again, it kind of changes all around, especially what they're teaching you. When you're in port, they can sometimes take you and like really show you something that you can learn rather than sitting down. And then on your watches, a lot of the time they can teach you a lot of one-on-one things with something you might not be comfortable with. That's when you really put a lot of your skills and what you're learning to use, where they really trust you to get everything done. And then like towards the end of the trip, they basically, every watch would take the helm or tell you where to go, and they would just stand back and watch you go and do your own thing. And if you went in the wrong way, I guess that was kind of on yourself, but it was a way to learning experience.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Eliza, talk to us about Segovia, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so Spain, obviously the cultural dynamic is a little different. They kind of stay out later at night and start their day a little bit later, which is nice. So typically in Spain, I think classes started at 9:30, which is a nice little sleep in compared to on campus. So you would wake up. Most kids live roughly like a 10 to 15-minute walk from the school. So everyone's actually walking to school every day, which is super cool. You get to know the city really well. So you'll get up and walk to school. You have an hour of history every day, an hour of English every day, and then 3 hours of Spanish every day. So I would say in comparison to maybe like some of the other programs, it is a little bit more academically based because you are kind of like in school all day. But you get out of school usually around 1, I think, and you'll go home. And a big part of Spanish culture is that you'll go home and have like a huge lunch with your family. Like lunch every day is like a Thanksgiving feast. So everyone will go home, have a huge lunch with their family, kind of have some time off to like take a nap because napping is also a part of the culture there. So just some time to rest. And then you'll have afternoon activities that you'll select to be incorporated into your day at the beginning of the trip. And then after that, you'll have some free time at night. So I think curfew was 9 p.m. on school nights. And then I think it was midnight on Saturday nights, which may seem a little extreme. But again, Spaniards tend to stay out much later. So it's not too crazy. But
Sorry, Eliza, can you just tell us a little bit about the afternoon activities? Like what, is it arts or is it sports or how does that work?
yeah, so we have a man that lives in Spain that teaches like a metal sculpture type class, which wasn't really something I was interested in, but I ended up taking it and a lot of the kids love it. He's super fun to be around. He'll bring you like candy every day, so you can sign up for that. We had an aerial yoga class that you could sign up for. They have a local gym that we all get a membership to automatically. And then they would do, I know for the fall group, they did on Fridays, they would go around and like do art in some pretty place in the city. When I went, they did Friday museums. So we would all go as a group together to kind of, Segovia is a small little city. So they have these like really old museums, but that are super local. So we would go to those. But they do encourage that you do something every day and make sure that kids are staying busy. But you do have like a little freedom with that. It's not the same activity every single day, which is nice.
Chris, you're muted.
Sorry, story of my life. Phoenix, can you tell a little bit about Mountain Classroom and kind of a typical day or maybe a type of day that you experienced on the road? Yeah.
So Mountain Classroom's days really depend on where you are and what the plan is for that day / week. You have certain places that you're going to for expeditions. And then we incorporate the classes that Chris listed on the slide into those expeditions. So that means English, social science, science, living skills, and like a wilderness class. And And usually you have each class meets about twice a week. But then, of course, you're incorporating everything you're learning from those classes into what you're doing. So depending on where we were, we could get up from anywhere between 4:30 a.m. to hike out the 6 miles to get back to our bus that day, or we could get up at 10 a.m. if we just had a driving day and we wanted to sleep in. But then usually it's like morning activities like breakfast. There's a job wheel on Mountain. So everybody has a task that they're doing for a given day. You can be the cook, you can be the cleaner, you can be the bard, which is somebody who journals for the group, and you share that during evening meeting. And so it's just a really good way for everybody in the group to have an opportunity to do all the things that you need in order for the group to work harmoniously together. And I think that's a really big part of how Mountain Stays work, is that we are making sure that everybody has what they need. And then from everybody getting what they need, then you move towards everybody getting what they want too. So another big part is evening meeting, which is like at the end of the night, we all meet together and debrief the day and share if we have any conflicts or anything that we need to work through, and then bedtime and start over again. But it really varies depending on what the plan is for that trip.
Cool. Thank you. Jackson, little Costa Rica breakdown for us.
So every morning you'll have breakfast with your host family, and then the program director will pick you up for school. And in the morning, similar to Spain, you'll have 3 hours of Spanish. Then you'll have an hour of history, an hour of science, and an hour of math. And I see a few other questions about academics. So particularly math, we actually have Lindsay Brown down in Costa Rica right now setting up the math program and making sure it's running properly for this year's math program. And we also have science and history is very focused on like the history of South America and the histories of revolution, and science is very focused around like the rainforest. So that's very immersive and getting out and rainforest biology. Then you have a half day of classes. So in the afternoon, we get out and we do, it's kind of a weekly schedule. So I'll just go through my weekly schedule. So Mondays, we went to a farm and rode horses Western style and also did community projects. Then we had Tuesday, we had dance. We had Latin American dance classes. Then Wednesdays would be our rest day. Thursdays, we kind of had the option for different things. So it was supposed to be like an athletics day. So that could be mountain biking, that could be soccer, that could be volleyball. And then Fridays were meant for us to hang out with our host families and go on outings with them. And every weekend we'd have special outings, like one weekend's going to the beach, one weekend's going to a farm and learning about like the coffee plants. Another weekend was nature hike, swinging bridge hike. Yeah, so there's a lot of free time incorporated, intending for you to like get out or spend time with your host family. So I actually still talk to my host kid like 2 or 3 times a week nowadays. But
Really, like your host sibling?
yes, my host sibling.
Is he or she the same age as you, or
Yeah, Roy's the same age as me. Yeah.
do you speak in English or Spanish? Be honest.
Mostly English.
Okay. Appreciate the honesty. Awesome. So I think I'm looking at these questions and I'm trying to synthesize some of them. I think there's sort of a question in here about how do you, as Proctor students, you come in maybe as a 9th grader or 10th grader, how do you sort of choose which program you're going to do? Like, how do you know which program is for you? is sort of the first question. So I don't know if anybody wants to take a stab at that. What was that
I'll
process?
take this just from like a sophomore perspective, because Costa Rica is only available to sophomores. So it would be your second year winter or your second year spring. And so it's kind of like an introduction to the off-campus experience, and also for those who might intend, because you're not going to be taking AP classes your sophomore, or as many AP classes your sophomore year, then you could go on Costa Rica, and then if you intend on taking more AP classes your junior and senior year, you wouldn't have that gap that might limit you as far as taking those classes. And then so as a sophomore going in, I saw some questions about group dynamics. So like, I don't know if that's incorporated into what you were asking, Chris, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more just like, how did you end up deciding, like, how did you know that Costa Rica was like right for you, right? So that's kind of, and then also
so-
subsequent, like, will you do another program? I think is a follow-up question for you, Jackson. as
So
well.
I'm interested in doing Ocean my senior year. You can do more than one off-campus program. So I was interested in Costa Rica mostly because I wanted to learn, learn Spanish, and also because I was really interested in sciences for rainforest biology. So
Nice. Anybody else? Can anybody else talk about sort of how they, how did you choose one program over the other? I mean, Sam, you talked about, you were like, I knew I wanted to go on Ocean Classroom. So, were there others of you who were like, I don't know, I'll figure it out when I get there? Like, can you turn back time a little bit and think about what you were thinking when you first came?
Little disclaimer, my computer is overheating, so if you hear something, that's the fan of it. But I sort of had like a different experience with choosing my off-campus. It wasn't like, oh gosh, which one do I pick? Or like, oh, I guess it was more of an, I definitely know which one I want to go to. Dave, the guy I mentioned earlier, he used to be my brother's football coach, and my brother came to Proctor before I did. And he would see me like doodling on the sidelines of the football games, like just really not wanting to be there. And so you should come to Proctor and you should go on Euro. So ever since I was like 7 years old, I'd sort of like, oh, Euro. I want to go to France and study art and go to the Louvre and look at the Mona Lisa and like see all these things in person. So it was just sort of like I said, a long time coming for me, but I had a hard time choosing between if I had the option to go on a second. Like I wasn't sure if I went to ocean or mountain. And it all just sort of came down to like a last minute gut feeling. Like it was like, oh, which one would I be more crushed if I didn't get to go on? It was sort of that type of thing for me.
Yeah. Phoenix, how about you? Did you know what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I did. My older brother went on Mountain Classroom his junior winter. And ever since I heard he was doing that, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I absolutely love being outside. Pretty much anything that gets me outside makes me really happy. And so I knew that I get seasick and I wanted to be outside. And the two main ones that are outside are ocean and mountain. And so to avoid seasickness, I chose mountain. I think both are incredible experiences, but that's just where I was coming from. And I love learning about the ecosystems that are around me and really diving into the culture that I'm surrounded by. We did a lot of work with Indigenous communities, which was super cool for me. And I also have the opportunity to go on Euro this spring. So I love art as well. So I am somebody who's lucky enough to be able to take advantage of both of the things that I'm really passionate about. And so when coming to Proctor, I knew that if I could, I would try and make the most of the experience in the way that would best fit me, which ended up being going on both of these off-campus programs.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything to add to sort of the process of figuring out which program is is for you, or do you see other students like struggle with that process? No. Everyone's sort of, is on their own journey. They kind of figure it out for themselves. How about, can you guys talk a little bit about the sort of the sign up process? So like, for example, like who gets to go? Like how did you, who gets to go, who goes when? Can somebody describe a little bit of like access, I guess, for lack of a better word, to programs?
Yeah, so typically in the fall of every year is when kind of applications start to get filled out for those. I think most of them are, at least the ones I've applied to, you just write like a short essay about why you want to go on that program, kind of like how you think it would benefit you. Basically anything relevant that you think really demonstrates why you want to and deserve to go on it, because they are really popular. And almost everybody that applies like will get the opportunity to go on one, but it's definitely a privilege that you kind of want to take seriously when applying, especially if you're really passionate about going on it. But you'll be able to write your essay and you'll fill out your ideal terms. So you get like a first, second, and third choice if it's a program that runs all year long. So a lot of times, maybe you won't get in the term that you wanted, but you got onto the program. But there's also a lot of switches that can happen. Kids will change their minds all the time. So it's not completely set in stone from kind of like your original decision and when you find out. But yeah, so you would just write an essay, and then typically I think you find out in like January or February of that year. So
yeah. And that's actually, Eliza, that's one of the best explanations I've heard from a student for how it works. So thank you. Okay, so there's a question about sort of athletics, but I'll expand it to include like, theater or any of your other interests. Like, how do you unplug from the things that you love on campus? And, are there conflicts with leaving? Particularly in terms of just extracurriculars for starters, and then we'll talk about academics. So let me ask the question a different way. So did you guys have did you have to think about when you were going to go? So for example, did any of you have a conflict with a sport? Were there things that were not negotiable for you? Like, would you not go away in a certain term because of things that you like to do on campus? So
I personally can't speak to having like a really important sport, but I know a lot of people who do. One of my close friends has sort of been grappling with going away in the spring or the winter because he doesn't want to be away for like his senior spring, but he is also a really avid skier. And so he just sort of had to think about like what he wanted for his future. I think he's decided Spring Mountain. I'm not sure. But I was talking to him about it, and he just sort of said that he was thinking, well, am I going to be like, do I want to ski in college? Do I want to be on campus and do senior project, which is something I'm sure you've heard about or will hear about in another Zoom panel. Like, do I want to be on campus for my senior prom? And it's just sort of like you have to weigh the options. For me personally, I was just happy to get on Euro at all because it's pretty uncommon for juniors to get on Euro. So I was just happy I was
nice. Eliza, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say that there definitely are conflicts a lot of the times with sports. So I'm supposed to go on ocean, or I'm going on ocean this winter. But back when I first came to Proctor, it was only offered in the fall, so I wasn't going to do it because soccer was kind of my main sport. So there are things definitely that you have to negotiate sometimes, but luckily they are starting to offer more programs more often. So example, like the ocean classroom is 2 terms now, and Euros now in the fall as well. But I think that after going to Spain, I might have chosen to miss the fall soccer season anyways to go on Ocean, just because it really is such an incredible experience. And I think that while you're there, and even when you're applying, you don't realize how lucky you are. And then you get back and you just like miss it so much, and you realize how special it was. I definitely miss Spain like every single day, as much as I love Proctor. So I think that obviously sports and stuff like that are really big to some people's kind of identity and who they are. But I think that really trying to step outside your comfort zone and kind of challenge maybe what you're telling yourself might be a good idea, because it's definitely just like the most incredible experience.
So you wouldn't have said that as a ninth grader, right?
No.
You were like, I'm going to play soccer. It doesn't matter, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. Anybody else have any insights into that piece about sort of figuring out sort of the right time to go? Did that, like Sam, did that play into anything, any decision for you?
A little bit. I mean, I do 2 varsity sports. I do football and then I do lacrosse. But one of the bigger things for me is kind of the whole academic aspect of it. On Ocean, they didn't really offer like a math program that you could take and get as a credit. So when you go off, you lose that time and you have to make it up in either doing some work in the summer, or you just get put behind in a class, in a off sequence class, which you'll be in the same boat as a bunch of other people that didn't have that same ability to learn. And you can definitely feel like a little bit of a setback, but at the same time, here at Proctor, they help you so much that you really can't get behind almost, which is a great aspect. But I feel like academics is one of those things where you don't really think about it as much in the moment, and you're more just excited to go on the trip. But sports can definitely come into a big play, especially with kids that are trying to go to college for that sport and that season, that they really can't miss it. But academics and sports can definitely be a hard play for some people.
So that kind of leads into, Sam, you kind of brought up something, which is, okay, how do these programs like dovetail with your on-campus academics, right? So what we know is that when you do an off-campus program at Proctor, it has its own curriculum, right? It's got its own credits, its own courses. And then, when you come back to Proctor, you're jumping back into, your more traditional classes. And there was a question specifically about like AP courses, because you're leaving, during your junior or senior year. So can you guys explain a little bit of how that works, and, maybe talk about your own experience? Like how did you guys make that bridge work between off campus and kind of coming back to campus academically?
Yeah, so I take a pretty rigorous academic course load. And when I first came to Proctor, that was one of my biggest concerns about going on the off-campus program, was that Spain, for example, you don't take math there and you don't take science. So I was a little nervous about that. I was in a couple APs last year, and all my classes are either like AP or honors this year. So it's definitely challenging to miss classes like that. When I came back, I was taking honors pre-calculus as a math class in the fall, so I missed it in the winter. And in order to go into AP calculus, you have to have all 3 terms, which meant that I was taking it in the summer. So that was definitely challenging, but like I said, you just kind of have to weigh the rewards of it. Definitely doing summer work is no problem at all to be able to have that experience. And there's a lot of classes here. It's kind of nice. A lot of the classes are organized by trimester here, so you can go back into classes that you took in the fall if you go off on the winter, for example. So I was in AP Environmental Science in the fall, and then I left, didn't take a science, but I was able to come right back in because they kind of try to split it up by trimester, and it makes it much easier for kids to kind of come and go through the off-campus programs.
Awesome.
I can kind of piggyback off of that. I was taking 3 APs last year, and I started in honors pre-calc with Eliza, but then I ended up just doing off sequence pre-calc because I wasn't able to fit in a term over the winter when I was on mountain. And I they've fixed the curriculum so that you can actually take off sequence pre-calc and still go into AP Calc. So you only need 2 terms of pre-calc now, which is really nice for juniors going off campus, because if they want to go to the natural AP Calc as the next class, it makes it possible for them to do that. And then the other thing is with AP classes, I was still able to take 2 of my exams, no problem, no extra work, because like Eliza said, they are based on term, and it's not a bunch of statistics you need to remember or information you need to remember, but it's more about your skills in that class. And so for both AP French and AP English, I was able to go into that exam feeling confident about it. The only one that I wasn't able to take was my AP Human Geography class, which is more cumulative in terms of information. So there are a couple classes, like Eliza said, that you do need to make up work, but for the most part, you can just hop right back in and still take the natural next class the next year.
Got it. Jackson, were you going to say something?
Yeah, it's just, that's another I didn't really have to worry about that as much with Costa Rica, because that was something I was going on my sophomore year. So I wasn't in any AP classes, and then this year I could load up on AP classes without the worry of like going off campus, but still able to have that experience and not worry as much about academics when and missing things from my course load.
So let me sort of flip the script a little bit. We're talking about sort of this really rigorous courses and leaving campus to go off campus, and then sort of jumping back into specifically AP courses. But like on the flip side, what about support? I mean, so you're put into an environment it's a totally different learning environment. What happens when you struggle? Like what happens when you're on Ocean Classroom and you're trying to, read The Hungry Ocean and the text is really dense and you're like, oh my God, how do I do this? Can you guys speak to that sort of, how do you get that support that we do a really good job of giving a lot of scaffolding and support when you're on campus, right? Get extra help with teachers. I mean, there's so much. So how does it work off campus?
Yeah, I can go a little bit on that. Especially for Ocean, for example, like when you're reading a book or something and you have to write something, or you're in your science class. One of the great aspects of it is that you can really sit down with like a bunch of other kids that are literally in the same boat. And then you can all work on that task or that problem, because there's a really good chance that you are not the only person struggling with that same problem. And then your teachers are always there because they literally can't leave. And so you can always nag them or get at them at something that you might need help with. But I feel like you're really, like when I struggled a little bit with either something here or there, the other students and your other peers are really going to be there to help you and support you and get you through whatever questions you really have.
Nice. Anybody else?
I can say a little. Ocean is a much bigger program than I think every other off-campus that Proctor offers. Euro is 8 students and 2 teachers, and we live in the same house as them. They live upstairs, and I struggled a little bit. I overall did a lot better on Euro than I do with like a regular structured class schedule, but I struggled a little bit getting used to it. And the joy of having your teachers living upstairs is you can ask for help whenever you need it, and they don't mean these off campuses to be GPA droppers. They want you to succeed. They want you to have fun. They want you to look back on them as like positive experiences and stuff that doesn't reflect poorly on your report cards, or even further on like your college transcripts and stuff. But there's so much support on and off campus with these off campuses, because there's something that Proctor has been doing for ages now, and all of the teachers are accustomed to it and used to it, and they just want to help.
Nice. Anybody else? Anything to add? Okay.
Yeah, Spain is kind of similar to Euro. What's nice, I think, about each of these programs is that on Proctor's campus, most of the teachers I would say teach like 2 to 4 blocks out of the 7 block schedule. So they do have like other classes. Like certain math teachers will teach completely different courses and have a lot of other students. But the nice thing about like Spain, for example, is that there's 10 students there. And Luis and Ellie, who are the couple that run it, like they're fully dedicated to you and only you. And like they really want to see you succeed. So even during free time, it's not like the kids are just kind of off for themselves and Luis and Ellie are at home, like with their children, like we're always together. We would host like these watching parties for soccer games and we would cook like Spanish food. So they're really always hanging out with you. And the school at Proctor in Segovia, for those of you who don't know, it's like in a kind of apartment building, but we have like our own individual school. We aren't incorporated with the local school. So anytime that you need help, like you can just shoot them a text message and meet them at the school. Every student will get a key into the building. So kids can go in there and complete work together. We would do that all the time in the afternoons. But they really, like all of the leaders of the programs understand that a lot of kids at Proctor like use learning skills and that a lot of kids will need that extra support sometimes. So they're really good about giving you it when you need it.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, you guys have touched on nicely on that sort of the support and the relationships. Can you guys talk a little bit about the social dynamic when you get into these programs, like the relationships you develop with the students and the faculty they're different than the relationships you have on campus. Can you guys describe that at all?
Sorry, Sam. I really think of Dave and Jen, who are the people who run the program. I honestly think of them as a second set of parents. I like texted Dave the other day because I had a question about some random like artist that I'd seen. I was like, hey, like, do you know anything about them? And he like responded immediately. I was like, hey, sweetie, like absolutely second pair of parents to me. And the other kids in the group are honestly like siblings. You really become a family with people you go out with because you're spending every second of every day with them. My roommate and I are super, super close, and the other girls in the program I'm super close with. And like you don't even have like the only person I knew going out there was the person who ended up being my roommate, which is really nice. But that she was the only person I knew, and I haven't talked to any of the other kids, and there's still people I talk to almost every day. So it doesn't matter like if you're from different friend groups, you have different interests, everybody's sort of different when you're on off campus, and the similar types of people are usually attracted to them. So everybody gets along.
Nice. Anybody else want to talk about the sort of social dynamic of the off-campus groups?
I agree a lot with what Libby, sorry, Sam, with what Libby said, but also a big part of Spain and probably Costa Rica is also like the relationships that you form with your host family, which is hugely helpful. Like when you're in a totally new country and you're kind of lost. The host families in Spain were like absolutely incredible. My family, I had 2 brothers. One was like a year younger than me and one was a year older. We became best friends so fast. We would go on like sunset walks every night and walk our dog together. And honestly, it was probably just being a Proctor student. Obviously, I'm at school a lot and not with my family. And it was like the closest thing to like, it was just the most incredible family experience I've ever had. I became so close with them. My host mom still will text me like once a week and ask how I am. Even the teachers, the Spanish teachers who live in Spain on the program will text me and like ask how I'm doing. I think they said they're going to come to my graduation, and like you just get so excited when you hear stuff like that, because like honestly a part of like your heart is still wherever you went on that program. And so I think that even sometimes people will worry about group dynamics and stuff like that, but that was one of the best things for me in Spain was that, you know, even when I wanted like my alone time from the group, like I still had a family to go home to at the end of the day. So you're really never feeling like truly alone on any of the programs. You always have someone to go to.
Awesome. Jackson, do you want to talk about your host family experience or anything like that?
Yeah, I got really close with my host family. I still, like I said, I still talk to them. Yeah, I remember my original host family sadly got COVID. So I had to switch host families. And I never got to meet the first host family, but they had a backup host family. So they still have more people in the program in case something doesn't work. And we were also told that if you really don't feel it and you really don't feel well, and you just don't feel like you're working with your host family well, you can switch into one of these other host families as well. But no, I loved my host family. Like I said, I still talk to them, and it was just always a great it was always a great environment in the home. And I that was probably the most memorable thing about Costa Rica for me, was just hanging out with my host family.
Nice. Sam, Phoenix, any final words about sort of the group experience, that social dynamic, the intensity, or yeah.
With Ocean, I mean, again, you have your watch group, which is around like 6 to 8 people, and again, you can either be waking up from 12 to 4 a.m. in the morning, or you can be from 4 a.m. to breakfast shift, and you're out there in either like some beautiful weather where you are just cruising along, enjoying your time, or you can be out there in miserable weather where it is rough out, it's raining, it's cold, and you really just want to go back to bed. But those are kind of like the people you just really stick it out with, and you can feel like you get the closest with them, along with everybody else that you're really with, you can also get close with. Again, just being there in like a small space with all these people for that amount of time, you really get to be able to see how other people's like personal lives can be on the boat, and what they do to like occupy themselves, and how you can like do stuff to kind of bring yourself closer to them, or how they can bring themselves closer to you. And again, like with classes and how you all can kind of like intermingle to tackle something together is really, really great. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Phoenix, any parting words?
Would just agree with Libby about the siblings and family thing. There were multiple times where I accidentally called one of my instructor's mom, and it wasn't even a thought in my head. It was just like, oh, mom, wait, Carol. So it's definitely a family dynamic, actually, to the point even where by the time my solo came around, which is the 4 days where you're by yourself without anybody else, and it's a really incredible experience. But I was so ready for that, and I gave the people hugs and then basically ran into the woods to be by myself for a few days. So it is, but then when we got back together, we were all like laughing and crying because we were so happy to see each other. So very much the family dynamic.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, so this takes us to the end of an hour, and we sort of promise ourselves to try to keep these panels to an hour. So thank you guys so much. And these guys also have study hall, so it's they probably have a lot of work to do. So I thank you guys so much as Proctor students for jumping on this call and giving your time and giving your perspective to these families. And to Proctor prospective admission families, thanks so much for tuning in. As Amy said in the chat, there's a recording link that will also get posted to our website. Feel free to reach out to any of us on the admission team if you have additional questions, or you want some follow-up, or you have want to be in touch with any of these students. We're happy to facilitate that. And if you haven't been on campus, we look forward to seeing you. And if you have, we hope to see you again. Thanks, guys, and have a great night. Appreciate it.